The Apple Watch Ultra 2 is arguably one of the best running watches on the market in 2023. And at $800, we sure as hell hope it would be. So in this video, we'll look at what makes this watch a great option for runners, as well as what Apple could do to make this watch even better for speedy track runners, marathoners, or even just occasional hobby joggers. And I think I'm uniquely qualified here because I've been all of those things at one point in my life, and now I'm still running, but I'm slow as Now, if you've ever worn an Apple Watch Ultra, one of the first things you're gonna notice is that it's a hefty watch. It's fairly heavy, it's thick, you're gonna notice it. And no, this isn't me trying to hit on your mom. We're actually talking about a watch here. And when watches have a lot of depth to them like this one has, you're more likely to hit them on things or catch it when you're taking off or putting on your jacket or a long sleeve shirt, for example. And with that extra size, Apple has dropped in a pretty hefty battery in here. It's a 2.1 watt hour battery compared to the 1.19 watt hour battery found in the Series 7, 8, and 9. I only have the Series 7 here to compare it to, but I'm seeing about double the battery life, or about 2.5 days before having to charge this watch. Now, using GPS, you can expect to get only about 12 hours, but the Apple Watch Ultra actually has 2 additional GPS settings that can be toggled to extend that range. You have normal low power mode, which extends that to about 17 hours. Conveniently, that's the exact amount of time that Ironman allows you to finish a full Ironman event. But then there's one more setting called low power mode workout with fewer GPS and heart rate readings. And in that mode, GPS usage is reduced to 1 reading every 2 minutes, and the watch can go up to 60 hours on a single charge, which seems extremely impressive. And I would say it's probably more ideal to use that in some sort of 2-day hike versus some sort of ultra running event. And the reason is because it's only reading once every 2 minutes, and you are gonna get some very mixed up distances when trail running on any sort of course that has lots of switchbacks and tight turns. And to me, I think that those are the kinds of courses that you might be doing if you are running an ultra marathon with this watch. So, is the Apple Watch Ultra 2 a good running watch? Sure, absolutely, I think it is. But is the Ultra great for ultra marathons? Personally, I don't think it's ideal. A fairly fast 100-mile ultra runner will go about 24 hours. And while it is possible to do that with the Apple Watch Ultra 2, I think that the GPS settings that you'd have to set up would probably make that kind of time cutoff a little bit tight. And even if you are an ultra slow marathoner, different than an ultra marathoner, but for example, let's say you're doing a 7 or an 8 hour marathon, 26.2 miles, the Apple Watch Ultra 2, you'd be fine. You wouldn't even need to enable that low power mode. You could be running Bluetooth, you could receive and respond to messages as you raced, you could listen to music, you could use the watch in its brightest settings. You're probably gonna be okay for that traditional marathon distance. But what if you're not into marathoning? What if you are into shorter races or shorter workouts, or you're a bit more focused on speed? Well, the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and I will say really all of the Apple Watches from about the Apple Watch Series 4 and above, they received an update as of Watch OS 9.2, where the watch can detect when you start at a track, or even if you're out running and you run up to a track. You'll get a little alert just asking you if you are going to run on the track, and if so, which lane you're gonna be running in. Doing so will snap your GPS tightly to whatever lane that you've selected. You end up with extremely accurate GPS tracks, you get very solid pacing information, and you get better splits on the track. And I like this better in a lot of ways than what most of the competition offers with various track mode activity types, because you can leave and you can come back to the track as needed, and it all ends up being part of one GPS track or one continuous training activity. It doesn't stop there. Apple is using their satellite imaging, Apple Maps, a massive database to find and locate all of these tracks. And what's crazy here is how much detail they have and how knowledgeable this database is on the tracks that they have found. For example, this track here is the Tualatin Hills track. It's a pretty standard 8-lane track, but where I coach at the Camas High School is a 9-lane track. And what I find fascinating is that some engineer at Apple thought to themselves, yeah, we can detect those details, and we're only going to show the options for the number of lanes available for each given track. There is so much here that I like about this AutoTrack Detection feature. I actually ended up making an entire video about it when it came out a few months ago. So if you do want to learn more about this feature, I will leave a link to it, up here in the corner somewhere, as well as in the description of this video. But as much as I rave about this one feature, track running on the Apple Watch is by no means perfect. Track workouts are all about taking splits, doing somewhat repetitive intervals. And I would love to see Apple just rethink that track mode a little bit with those things in mind. I mostly want to see, what my last split was. I might want to see maybe a list of my last few splits. I might want to see rest time. I might want to see split pacing information. But I'd also really like a very easy gesture or motion or something to make taking splits a little bit easier on the Apple Watch or the Apple Watch Ultra 2. And the Apple Watch Ultra 2 does have an action button, and if it's set to workout, which mine currently is, you can use that action button as a split button, and that's great. But if you have it set to flashlight, or maybe you have it set to stopwatch because you coach a whole bunch of kids, or maybe you even have it set to shortcut because that's gonna allow you to really do a ton of different things right from that action button. But my point is that if you have it set to anything other than workout, it's not gonna act as a split button. It'll switch you out of that track workout activity into some sort of flashlight or stopwatch app or something like that. And maybe that's what you want, that's great. But what I want is for that action button to work a certain way when I'm in a workout, in this case, a split button, in a different way when I'm in a different app. For example, if I'm in the stopwatch app, I'd love to have that work as a start and stop button. Now, if gestures are Apple's brand new thing, I would love to just be able to slap my Apple Watch hard to create a split. There was a Nike watch that did this a long time ago. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. Maybe it's just me, but that was fantastic. But you could tell that someone at Nike really thought hard about what's the easiest motion that might be for, starting or stopping or adding a split when you're in the middle of a really hard track workout. Now, in addition to AutoTrack Detection, when Apple released watchOS 9.2, they also introduced another running feature called Race Routes, which it's kind of interesting. Basically, you can race your previous efforts on a given course, and you can see whether you're behind or in front of one of those previous efforts. You can race your fastest time, or you can race your most recent time, which is good if you were previously fast like me and maybe now you aren't quite as fast. But this feature is fine. I will say that my main beef with this feature is that something called race routes really should be all about maybe downloading race routes and then navigating with your Apple Watch. And as crazy as it sounds, maybe help you route during a race. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just like a cranky old washed up jogger, because there really is a lot more to like about this watch when it comes to running. One of those things is a new multi-band GPS chip with also new algorithms for refining that GPS data. Because when you start to compare GPS tracks of the Apple Watch Ultra 1 or the Apple Watch Ultra 2, you start to realize that this is some really amazing GPS accuracy. And I've run recently with another coach on some trails in DuPont, Washington. We both finished our runs, and his watch actually had him over half a mile less than what I had. And bear in mind that I was actually wearing 2 GPS watches, both of which had multi-band GPS technology, both of which matched absolutely perfectly as far as mileage goes. But it just turns out that less accurate GPS watches are often going to round off a few of those turns, especially when you're on difficult trails. In those distances, they're just gonna kind of add up, and you may end up with a mismatched distance to what you actually ran. But either way, and I've said this before, a lot of the newer watches from Apple as well as Garmin are really providing the most accurate GPS tracks that I've ever seen when compared to other watch brands on the market. Now, speaking of Garmin, I thought that you might be interested to see just a few competitive products on the market. Here, if you're looking to save money on a running watch, the Coros Pace 3 is about $230. Then Garmin has some great options like the Forerunner 255 for $350 or the 965 for $600. And then the Garmin Epix 2, which comes in a Pro and a non-Pro variety. The newer Pro one costs about $1,100, but it comes with a built-in flashlight, which is actually fantastic. And then I'm seeing the previous version, the non-Pro edition, a bit discounted now for about $600 or $700. And I should also mention getting a previous edition of the Apple Watch would work really well for you as well. This is my Series 7 here, and you get a lot of the features that I talked about within this video for a steep discount. I'm actually seeing the Series 8 for about $320 or so. But back to the Apple Watch Ultra 2, and if I recommend it for running. And the answer is absolutely I do. I think it's an extremely accurate device. I think it has a ton of running specific features. I think it's built extremely well, and it has extremely durable materials. Although I didn't really talk about that in this particular video, you are welcome to check out my video where I talk about the Apple Watch Ultra 1 and how it held up over 300 days. But the short answer is that it held up extremely well. So I think that the battery life on this device is good, but it's by no means like the market leader. So it might not be the absolute best option if you are aiming for something like a 100-mile ultra trail race. But for most of us, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is a fantastic running watch, and it's a watch that you really should be considering if you're a runner, but you still want a full-featured smartwatch. And if you're wondering how this watch holds up for swimming or biking, I have you covered. I just recently posted specific videos about those activities here on the channel. Feel free to check that out. But either way, whether you're considering the Apple Watch Ultra 2 or something completely different, I really do hope that you're getting out there, swimming, biking, running, rinsing, and repeating it all over again, and we will see you on the next one.